Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to another StarCraft 2 video. Now here's the thing, I'm sure you noticed the duration of this video. However, this is not a best of 3, this is not a best of 5, this is not a best of 7, this is just a single match. So I am ready for something exceptional because usually replays are not quite this long. I have no clue what to expect, but I do know that this game is not gonna end early. Spawning here in the top left hand corner of Redshift. I mean, it's always Redshift. This map gives us some insane games. He's playing with the red Zerg drones. He's from the Ukraine and he goes by the name of Bly. And his opponent spawning in the bottom left hand corner. He's from the Netherlands. He's playing with the blue Protoss probes. We are currently looking in the main base of Harstem. So this should be a really interesting match. I mean, it's very uncommon for a game in StarCraft 2 to say go over 30 minutes. It seems like most games really end well before that. I think like the average duration of... Hey, look, there's a hole in the map. I've never actually noticed that. That is very interesting. Anyways, I think the average duration of a pro game is probably maybe like 8, 9, 10 minutes. I mean, there's obviously those outliers that there are like 20 plus minutes, and I usually try and find the most epic games to cast, and usually those are going to be the longer matches as well. But regardless, yeah, a lot of games do end rather early. There's a lot of games that end at like the 3 or 4 or 5 minute mark just because of something cheesy. Now, Bly is very well known for his hyper-aggressive playstyles, but so far, it looks like he's opening up quite standard. This is what makes Bly such a scary player. I mean, I would say in probably about half or so of the games that I've seen Bly play, he plays something hyper-aggressive, and he's not afraid to just all of a sudden go all in. I'm curious to see if something similar will be happening along those lines as well, but so far, in 2018, he's been playing a lot more of a macro-focused style, and he's very, very good at it too. Now, Harstem is probably one of the most standard Protoss players you can find, and that's not a bad thing. I personally absolutely love watching people play the quote-unquote standard. Basically what that means is that he's likely going to be playing a much more macro-focused Protoss playstyle. He'll probably be pressuring, at the very least with, for example, Oracles, or maybe some Phoenixes, or maybe some Adepts, or maybe some Archon drops, or something along those lines. But usually Harstem is the player who feels most comfortable playing that much more drawn-out, longer macro game. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. It's really a different kind of playstyle really for both players. I know that Bly has been playing a lot more macro recently, but I don't really know exactly how strong his macro game is. Now, a little bit of miss micro there by Harstem on the very first probe. Not the biggest deals. Now, for the longest time, actually, on this map, we saw players take the gold really early. In particular, someone like Bly, I would have expected to take that gold really quickly, but instead, he's sort of expanding horizontally. So he's taking the third base very quickly, but he's not taking it in any risky position. As a matter of fact, that position right there on the other side of the map is pretty tricky for a Protoss player to harass. First Adept is already moving in, is trying to see if that gold base is taken. Not quite the case. A couple of Zerglings made their way across the map. There's already, though, the Stargate up and running. That one is going to chrono boost out the very first Oracle. Stalker should eventually be able to get rid of these Zerglings, but they're being a bit of a nuisance, right? They're forcing some of that lost mining time. They're just inducing a little bit of panic, I suppose, in the Protoss player, but all things considered, this should be pretty good. Now, I by the way, just noticed, there's still... what's his name again? I think it's Samwise from the Blizzard team. As a main portrait on that Nexus. It's like a decal. The one in the natural does have the actual clan logo of Harstem. Very interesting to see that apparently that is still a little bug in the game. This is something that we have seen for quite a while. Now here we go though. A lot of Zerglings are moving across. Harstem is actually just activating the Shade. I was gonna say he needs to cancel that. Nicely done by Harstem, getting the perfect timing on that. There is now a second pylon already coming up, but a third one will be forced too. Luckily for our Protoss though, he did get himself that Stalker out, so he should be able to deflect these Zerglings here with relative ease. The Oracle though, oh, it actually flew straight towards the third base location rather than the main or the natural. I already checked the main base there. It got a single kill, so I guess it went after either one of the larvae or maybe one of the drones that was trying to morph itself into a spore crawler. Nothing all too crazy so far though. A lot of Zerg players have gotten so good at dealing with the Oracles in the early game. I mean, it's by far the most common build. They usually don't really cut any corners. Now, Bly in this particular game did decide to cut some corners with delaying the Spore there at the third. He does have a whole bunch of queens around this area, though, so either way, he shouldn't really have been in that scary of a position. But we see this weird, like, I guess, Oracle minigame. That's kind of what StarCraft 2 is. You play this really long, drawn-out macro game, but it's mostly just made up of small little minigames that are part of the matchup. So, for example, we have, like, the Adept minigame with the Zergling run-by minigame. We have the Oracle harassment minigame, where Zerg is trying to play the minigame by delaying their Spore Crawlers and the Queens for as long as possible so they can get a little bit more workers out. There's gonna be that, I don't know, Hydraling Bane kind of minigame. Now, the Zerglings are getting this around right now on these Adepts, dealing quite a bit of damage, actually. Interesting engagement there by Bly. Usually, we don't see Zerg players really take that. The thing is that if you lose these links, you kind of have to remake them as well. That is something that Bly is very comfortable with. He's already sitting at 49 drones, but that's, honestly, for 3 bases, not all too much. Resonating Glaives is just about to finish up here for Harstem. So rather than going for the Archon drops, he's decided to go for the Adept play here instead. They can deal quite a bit of damage. You don't actually have to commit very heavily to it at all. There's no Roachborn to be seen anywhere here, I don't think, for Bly. There is already that Hydra Den, so obviously he could deal some damage with that. He also does have 20 plus Zerglings coming up, so I think that he should likely be okay, but Harstem can definitely deal a bunch of damage, depending on how these Adepts manage to shade in. There we go, I think he is going to commit. Resonating Glaive, of course, is done. He's going to try and find the safety here of these mineral patches, but the Zerglings are all over it. Even with the additional attack speed that these Adepts do get from that upgrade, only a handful of drones have gone down so far. It's all very insignificant. Now, 2 Adepts did manage to stay towards the 3rd base. Nice target firing there by Bly. He will be able to get rid of that 1 weakened Adept, and apparently that means that, for now, Bly is in a pretty happy spot. Now, he's going to follow it up with a bunch of Overlords and Cocoons. Now, ever since the Ventral Sex upgrade, the Overlord carry upgrade, has been moved over towards Lair rather than Evolution Chamber, a lot of Zerg players have stopped doing this kind of style, right? It's not very common right now for a Zerg to go for heavy drop play. It was very common for a little bit. Players would do it almost every single match, to the point where it got so obnoxious that Protoss literally had only 1 build order in Zerg vs Protoss, so they changed that. But this can certainly still do a bunch of damage. It's relatively small commitment. There's a couple of Banelings now also loaded up here for Bly. So I like how he skipped out the Roach play altogether and just went straight into Hydraling Bane. Well, here we go. This Overlord is rallied straight towards the gold here, so he's probably going to unload and then just simply run him straight into that mineral line in the main base. Now, there is now, look at those spidey senses here of Harstem. There is now that queued up shield battery, so he's going to be able to get one here in just a bit, but these links have already arrived. Now, in the meantime, Zerg has taken a 4th base in the top right-hand corner, and Protoss is happily macroing off of this very strong 3-base eco as well. Now, the 1 Immortal actually gets surrounded. Very big commitment once again by Bly, but he does get the Immortal. That's a big deal. Trading like 8 Zerglings, or I guess 4 Zerglings up to this point, in exchange for just one freaking Immortal. That's very, very good. Here come the Banelings, though. He needs to be careful. Harstem, that is. These Banelings are unloading. They do get a couple of probes. 5 in total for 4 Banes. Nothing all too insane. I think that's actually very manageable. And eventually, the last of the Templar does manage to... or I guess there's one more Zealot over here, too. There's actually one on the ramp too. Never mind. But they do manage to clean that one up. 4th base is now trying to be acquired here as well by Harstem. Looks like the 1 Zergling was not sleeping on the job, but it did not prevent rather the probe from getting that base up and running. Couple of Hydras now on a bit of a sniping mission. This is so cool though, right? Players are moving these really small armies across the map continuously. Does anyone remember StarCraft 2 back in like Wings of Liberty, where it was literally... What? Whoa! That's a big mistake. That's the 2nd Immortal. Okay, he's gonna just mass recall it. I was gonna say, that's not something you want to do. But in Wings of Liberty, for the longest time, players would just mostly go for one big maxed out army, clash once at the 20-minute mark, and that was game. Right now, we see continuous bits of harassment that really show what the game is gonna be all about. Now, these Hydras, though, they're committed to sniping that one... that one Phoenix. They managed to get the Phoenix and then they just simply get out once again as well. A big chunk of this Hydra Ling ball, though, is moving on the right-hand side of the map. It looks like Bly is maybe trying to... Yeah, he's trying to outsmart his opponent. Look at that. Such a cheeky little play. Try to drop the opponent's natural here while pushing on the right-hand side. Now, quite a lot of damage was done here, though. I think that's that one Oracle that got himself a whole lot of kills. But we are definitely at a very solid macro-focused game. We see more Immortals coming up for here for Harstem. He's already going for a very standard mid-game Protoss composition, and this is actually starting to be quite important here. There's a lot of High Templar. We've seen how Harstem can land those storms absolutely brilliantly in a game that he that I recently uploaded where he went up against a mystery Zerg player. He's very good at the Psionic Storm, but here come the Banelings. They don't really care about that front wall very much. One force field does go up, but Banes are now moving forward straight towards that mineral line. That's a lot of probes that end up dying there. At the same time, the Hydras are going to commit as well on that side of the map. They are going to pretty much sacrifice themselves, I suppose, but not without incurring a massive amount of damage. Great storms there. Already 3 storms perfectly rendered. That's the 4th storm, and this is really what you know, categorizes Harstem's mid game. He's very patient with the storms, and he did manage to clean up that army. Very expensive move by Bly, but that was still 25 probes. And since Zerg is already sitting at 76 workers, just simply happily macroing off of 4 hatcheries here, he's going to be able to remake that army very rapidly, and Harstem knows about it. He might want to try and poke the bear for just a bit, see if there's any damage that he can do, but I don't think he really wants to commit all too hard here. It's very difficult to do so. Now, he does have the War Prism, so he can go straight for the offensive if he likes to, which I do think is the correct call. Once again, though, the Overlord with the Hydralisk is just being a nuisance, right? And this is really frustrating to deal with if you are a Protoss player. Because committing to like a Warpin at home, like you need probably about 5 or 6 or so Zealots to properly deal with a bunch of Hydras. This is pretty tricky, and once again, this is buying a lot of time. Harstem knows he's been slowed down too much. He can't really commit very heavily at all. Now, a couple of Templar are moving towards the top right-hand corner. They will meet with 1 Queen as well as 1 Spinecrawler, one of the Pokeboys, happily going to town. At the same time, though, the Hydras have now landed here. And you look, this is not very significant, but it buys Bly time. It buys him a lot of time, right? And that's really the only thing he did, or he needed after sacrificing such a big chunk of that Zerg army. At the same time, though, this is still a pretty menacing force. There's already the Greater Spire morphing coming up, and now also Corruptors for our Zerg player in red. So Harstem has caught it a bit of a weird angle. I mean, he could easily go ahead and just simply keep on playing this style that he is, but I don't really like the position that he's in very much at this point. I mean, he's going to be able to go for that big Death Bowl army, but the hard counter to this Arc 1 Immortal High Templar kind of mid game is definitely Brute Lords, and he has no answer for that whatsoever. He would have to start adding on additional Stargates or something along those lines very shortly. Now, he is now going for another Oracle. I guess that's for scouting purposes. Both players trying to buy a bunch of time. Harstem to try and get up to that maxed out Protoss Death Bowl, but you know, obviously Zerg is already getting the Brutes out. That's 6 Brute Lords. That's a lot of Brute Lords. You may have the Warp Prism here on the right-hand side, and maybe they can deal some damage. But that is a very menacing amount of units here that Zerg already has out. And here we go. Protoss is maxed out, or near maxed out, on a very strong army. However, Brute Lords are finishing. And I think as soon as Harstem sees them, he doesn't know about them just yet, but as soon as he sees them, he's probably going to have to get out of there. A lot of Zerglings have now been split off towards the top right-hand corner here as well. The Brute Lords still not showing themselves. Bly being very patient about it, but there we go. They are spotted. Now, with good storms and with good Archon placement, they can still definitely kill this Brute Lord ball as well, but it's so risky. I mean, Hydras deal so much damage in such a short amount of time, and I guess that at this point, right, even though we see this back and forth, but once again, a couple of Hydras dropping off on the other side of the map, and a lot of Zealots are slicing and dicing away at the drones at the top right-hand corner, I do think that the main army, yeah, of Protoss is just simply gonna retreat. It's gonna try and recuperate and see if it can potentially max out on something a little bit stronger. Now, these Hydra's days are numbered as well. They're not gonna be able to make it out of there. One of the Overlords will also be killed, and while the Zealot in the top right-hand corner did not quite succeed at killing the base, they did kill dozens of workers there, if I'm not mistaken. That was a lot of damage that was dealt. Now, Harstem is once again gonna warp in a couple of Zealots, right-click that hatchery. He does get the kill. Beautiful work. Slight mispositioning there by Bly's army, and it does mean that the hatchery will go down. So, right now we do see that transition, right? There's more Stargates coming up. The Fleet Beacon is already out. We do now also see Tempest going up, and they are phenomenal if you get enough of them against this Brute Lord base force. Now, you don't want to just move the Brute Lords forward, though. It is that Harstem doesn't know about this, but he would have gone straight after those Brutes if he saw them. The longer that this goes on, though, right, that's 3 Tempests on production every single second that goes by. That's a lot of Tempests. There's now also a Mothership coming up. Basically, you need to get, I think it's like 6 or so Tempests to one-shot a Brute Lord. It depends a lot on upgrades. I'm not entirely sure what the exact math on it is, but you need a bunch of Tempests in order to properly deal with it. And look at this, right? Harstem now buying himself a lot of time with these small little Zealot run-bys continuously to get that Tempest count up. Now, Protoss is once again maxed out. He's not really going to be able to get very many units. I guess he would like to get another Tempest out. Yeah, there's another one coming up. So that's 6 in total after these 2 finish. Very solid amount. I do think that's enough to start one-shotting those Brutes, but obviously that's a lot of freaking Brute Lords though, man. That is 12 Brute Lords and 2 Vipers. Those Vipers are going to be phenomenal for example, abducting this army. Harstem's still sending more and more Zealots forward. He's got plenty of minerals that he can just simply throw away. Zerg is mining now finally off of that gold base though, and I do like this position that Bly is in. He's got a lot of bases. Sure, he might lose this army, but he's even going to be able to remake it quite easily. But look at that. The Tempest, they're looking for these pot shots. Now, one of the Tempests does get abducted, but the Harstem, or rather the Hydras do not deal enough damage there to pick it off quick enough. They are killing a lot of the Brutes, or mostly just softening them up, right? A lot of those Brute Lords are at a very small amount of HP, but Harstem is not quite killing them. At the same time, 11 probes once again end up dying. Here come the Archons, though. The Archons are moving forward. This is a very, very tense fight. I think that Harstem actually does have the upper hand. Bly overextending here. I think I mean, he could deal a lot of damage, and he's still sort of like soft-containing his opponent on practically 4 bases. But it's a very, very difficult situation to be in. I'm sure you've all played this style before if you are a Zerg. You know that once this army dies, he's going to be replaced with more air units, right? There we go. Void Ray is now coming up, more and more Tempest coming up as well. And I think that Harstem may very well be able to use this time to now also secure, for example, a 5th base. Maybe even a gold base, or maybe the one right here on the low ground. I do think he needs another base, though. He cannot. Yeah, look at this. Bly's actually scouting for it right now as well. He knows that it's not up. He cannot just simply sit on 4 bases. He's going to run out of resources here eventually. There we finally do see that that 5th Nexus now trying to get secured here as well, but I don't think it's going to up. It's not going to go up just yet at this point. These Zealots are being an absolute nuisance. Great work, by the way, by Harstem so far, destroying so many of those creep tumors, right? Really patching up the creep, I suppose. Queens are once again pulled off that mineral line to try and get that base, or rather get that creep spread out on the map a little bit more. I do think that Spore Crawlers and whatnot are going to be absolutely phenomenal. Usually at this point in the game, it's also a good idea for Zerg to start adding on like a lot more Vipers and Infestors, but obviously they are extremely gas heavy, and Bly doesn't have that much gas income either. He has a lot of workers, though, mining these golden minerals, and there's still these Vipers from the earlier stages that can definitely abduct these units for a little while. More Brute Lords coming up. That's a lot of Brutes. I actually kind of like the amount of Brute Lords that Bly is getting. Usually we see Protoss players being forced to deal with like 5 or maybe 6 Brute Lords. He's once again going up to 10, I think? Yeah, that's 10 Brute Lords here. Very solid. I did the counting myself. I know, insane. Here we go, though. The one downside of Brute Lords, of course, is that they are extremely slow. They're not going to be able to really keep these workers alive at the gold base location. Bly getting a couple of sports near the front, not only for, of course, that anti-air damage, but also for, nice storm there, but also for the detection. That mothership is going to cloak practically everything. Once again, Zealots here on the right-hand side being an absolute nuisance. Bly being forced to split off the majority of this army, but still, this is a difficult back and forth to make. Harstem now does have that Death Bowl, though, right? That's a very, very scary Protoss army. I kind of wish Protoss players would use the mothership a little bit more in the way that Arbiters were used in StarCraft 1. I do think that would be really cool to see. This is such a difficult thing to do, though. So basically what you need is Revelation on the majority of the Zerg army. That way you have vision for these Tempests to actually deal some damage. So you need the Oracles for support as well. There we go. Once again, massive Revelation will show these Brutes here for a little while. And that way, even though the Tempests can shoot away further than they can see, they should be able to start shooting at these Brutes here as well. Now, while this is all going on with the main army movement, there's still continuous engagements here on the right-hand side of the map as well. Harstem did finally manage to secure himself that 5th base. But it's still not going to be, it's not going to be very stable. Here we go, though. Big engagement. The main Protoss force is now nearing maxed out. There's a couple of Dark Templar being morphed in there as well. The gold base does get shot down here by the Tempest eventually. Very slow, methodical play here by Harstem. Dark Templar should be able to kill these Zerglings here eventually, though. A couple of Zealots now are also holding the line. But this is a very, like, tedious moment, right? How exactly are you going to play this out if you're both players? Harstem is trying to land all those spot shots on as many of those Brutes as he can. There we go. He has enough to one-shot Brutes, which is exactly what he needs. He's trying to deal the damage here with those Tempests. Very slow, methodical kind of army. I almost feel like Disruptors at this point would be a great addition as well if you can micro all of it, although obviously they are also very, very gas heavy. He needs to keep this base alive, though. If Bly manages to kill this economy here on the right-hand side, it's very, very difficult for Protoss to actually stay alive in this game. He needs to get this base. Because if that's the case, all of a sudden, right, Bly is going to be the one with a superior economy. Now, I say that, and I just noticed that a couple of Dark Templar made their way towards the top right-hand corner. With Harstem's army sitting here in the middle of the map, Bly is not really capable of leaving a lot of units at home for defense. Right now, he's finally splitting off a couple of Hydras, trying to go after that 5th base location of Protoss, but I mean, Bly doesn't have a lot of economy anymore. He lost the base in the top right. He lost the gold expansion. He does still have the one over here. Great abduct, by the way, on that mothership. Woo! Double abduct. And the brutes, or rather the corruptors, do get it eventually. One of the Tempest here will also be picked off. At the same time, though, the Dark Templar are slicing and dicing over here. At the same time, on the other side of the map, a couple of Hydras picked up the 5th base location. And both players are sort of like poking each other in the eyeball, right? See whoever flinches first. I mean, that's a lot of damage that's being dealt here. An eye for an eye for sure. All right, so this is now a very interesting scenario. Practically every single base has been mined. Neither player has a really strong economy, and both of them have a really strong army. The thing is, since they don't really want to commit to a massive army push right now either, right? Because the thing is, if you lose a bunch of your units, you can't really replace them, and you kind of need that army to try and rebuild your army once again, or to rebuild your economy right again. It's a very tense situation to be in. How many times have you been in this scenario, and how exactly are you going to play this out? I kind of feel like the Corruptor roaming is actually really good. Corruptors can easily snipe, for example, like a fleet beacon, or they can maybe snipe like a Stargate. And obviously, I've got the omnipotent vision all over the map. It's difficult to do so when you're actually in the middle of a game. There we go. They've grouped up with the Vipers. That's a really strong hit squad. 5th Nexus once again being taken here by Harstem. He does still have those High Templar, waiting for those Storms. Now also picking up a lot of those Tumors, which I think is the greatest choice he could make right now. But still, this Zerg army here is looking, right? It's trying to see if it can pick up any units for free.
Swarm forces under attack.
Couple of those Storms coming down right now, dealing a huge amount of damage. Bly jumping straight on top of all of these units. Prismatic Alignment has now been activated, though, by those Void Rays. But at the same time, we also did see the Parasitic Bomb coming down on all of those units. The majority of that Protoss army taking significant amounts of damage. Prismatic Alignment has now been cancelled as well, so those Corruptors can continue their work for a little while longer. Broodlords and Hydras now also trying to move forward, and it does look like Harstem will be forced to retreat the 5th base location for now. That was a very scary fight there. Parasitic Bomb deals so much damage, but so do Storms, right? It's such a difficult decision to make there if you want to jump on that army. If I was Bly in that scenario, I probably would have lost everything. The thing, of course, about Storm is that it deals friendly fire and Parasitic Bomb doesn't. So, you know, you don't really want to, like, spam your Storms necessarily, but you also don't want to storm your own forces if the Zerg army moves forward. So it's a difficult decision to make. Bly, though, he secured the base in the top right-hand corner once again. Considering we are 23 minutes into the game and both players have such big armies, you'd imagine a lot more production at this point, but that's not quite the case. Neither player really producing very much of anything. Once again, the base in the top right-hand corner will be picked off. The 3rd never got retaken, and Bly, I mean, he's got a decent amount of workers still. It's 37 drones versus 46 probes, but his eco is shattered. Harstem is now ahead when it comes to the army, and I also do think he's currently ahead when it comes to the economy. Now, pretty much all bases, though, I say that, and pretty much all bases here have been mined out. I actually kind of would like it if, yeah, dude, I was just gonna suggest that. If Bly was gonna mine from his opponent's gold, you can mine this base from the left-hand side just fine. Now, there is a Zealot here scouting exactly what's going on, so I don't think this base is gonna stay up for very long. Although Zerg is now trying to move up towards that high ground, right? High ground is where it is at. You really want to try and get that high ground if you can. That hatchery though? Hexes. Wow, that's a new word. The hatchery there does get picked off. Bly is not going to be able to mine from that one for just a little while longer. Maybe he's going to be able to do so in just a bit. A lot of drones now evacuated from the gold here as well. But here we once again do see that continuous damage output of those Tempests. How many remain? It's actually only 3 Tempests. Tempests are really expensive. If I'm not mistaken, Tempests cost just as much as carriers. So they are not cheap units. They just produced about twice as fast. They are very powerful. I kind of feel like I kind of feel like having a couple of carriers might not necessarily be a bad idea either. The Tempests, though, are providing a lot of value. It's hard to say, right? I've lost many games myself as Zerg for someone who get maxed out on carriers, but carriers do require minerals to actually keep them up and running, obviously, with the rebuilding of interceptors. And Harstem doesn't really have that booming economy, right? Once again, Zergling's moving here on the right-hand side of the map rather than focusing on his own economy. Bly did get the base, by the way, in the top right-hand corner, but he continuously makes more Zerglings to try and just force the Protoss player either to stay back at home or to at the very least prevent the economy from Harstem once again from taking a bit of a relapse. So this is very interesting. So Protoss in this entire game has had a very hard time getting 5 bases up and running. And while Harstem does have a very menacing force, it looks like he is not entirely sure what to do with it either at this point. He's hoping that the Zerg is going to push on his side of the map. He doesn't want to fight on creep. But then again, he really needs to try and get another base up and running. I always feel like he should go for the gold though. Because there's not a whole lot here on the right hand side of the map anymore. There's some production here, I suppose. But I think he's better off taking this side of the map and just sort of abandoning the right hand side. Just because the gold base is going to provide a lot of value. Then he can take this nexus and he can take this nexus as well. And then he can position his army just over here on this high ground and sort of cover both of them. I do think that's the correct choice to make. But obviously it's difficult to say where you're in the middle of the game. Well, here we go once again. Right at the engagement area that we were in previously as well. Revelation is used here on the majority of this Zerg army. So Protoss knows where it's located. A couple of High Templar moving very deep onto the creep. Zergling's still here on the right-hand side. I really think he needs to take these bases. I really think it's time to abandon the bottom right-hand corner, because Bly is not going to give that base up. Every time that Protoss gets it up and running, he splits off a group of Hydras and just gets rid of it anyway. Right? That's still a lot of Hydras. Hydras do a magnificent amount of damage. Then again, Bly does sort of need that army here nearby. Harstem once again trying to poke at those creep tumors. The Viper now moving forward, trying to get a bit of an angle here, trying to move away from the rest of the revealed units, because Harstem doesn't know where those units are going to be located. I love the multi-pronged harassment here. It's so sick. Both players really not giving each other an inch. The happy little Uruburu, or Urubu, scouting the Nexus. It's poking at it. It's like, what's this? This is my home. I built a nest here. Feels bad, man. Very, very sad. Okay, so the Nexus is, yeah, okay, so this is what I think Harstem should have done a couple of minutes ago. Since the base in the bottom right-hand corner was mining out, I think he needs to get that economy transferred towards the base over here instead. This is much more difficult here for a Zerg player to push into. Plus, it's golden minerals, right? Golden minerals are very, very, very nice. That does mean, though... Oof, that's a big loss. That does mean, though, that at this point, Protoss is sort of giving Zerg the right-hand side of the map. Zerg obviously much more mobile, and while there are still some Templar out, there's not a lot of resources anymore here for Harstem. So I think he probably wants to continue warping in Zealots with, like, the Warp Prism and all that. But he lost the Prism, and he can't really easily send the units towards the right-hand side anymore. I do think it's important, though, for Protoss to have the high ground here right now. I don't think you want to give Zerg the high ground. Because these you know, Zerglings are going to be able to provide a lot of vision and continuous harassment here as well. Towards, like, the mineral line and just to be a general nuisance. In particular, once this base starts running out in about 8 minutes or so. Considering that it's going to stay up and running. Now, one Immortal, once again, will take a heavy amount of damage. You don't really want to have them at this point, but you don't really want to lose them for free either, right? It's a difficult thing to say. Banelings trying to morph or move in here from the high ground towards that newly acquired base. But here we go. This is the tricky part about giving Zerg the high ground, right? Like these Hydras will continuously move forward. And they will try their very best to deal as much harassment damage as they can. Zealots once more, now accompanied by one manager here in the Dark Templar. Moving towards the base right here on the right-hand side. This one should likely be cleaned up here by the Zerg, but that's still a lot of Protoss though. They deal a lot of damage here. And obviously that's a relatively small gas commitment. Both players really starving for gas at this point in the game. Oh, I think the High Templar, or rather the Dark Templar, will be able to just barely win that fight. But here we go. The majority of the Zerg army is now moving forward. Protoss caught with his pants down. Oh my god, the Baneling's getting such a big connection there on all of those High Templar. I wonder if, like, fatigue comes into play as well, right? I mean, these players have been playing for now nearly 30 minutes. That's a long time. That's a long time. At the same time, We do see the drones getting the kill there on the Dark Templar. That's still 50 or 14 drones there, but at the cost of all of the High Templar. High Templar are not units you want to lose. I mean, there's still 3 remaining, I guess. But they're nice little flowy capes. They may look pretty and all, but, you know, you don't really want to lose them at this point. If you can at all, avoid it. Beautiful distraction there by Bly. Still staying focused, and that's honestly one of the things as well. Not something a lot of Zerg players or a lot of pro gamers rather gets to practice nearly as often, since the games don't last this long very often. You know, the fatigue that you need, or rather the lack thereof, in order to play this properly, right? You see this a lot in like football as well, right? In like extended times and all that. Players just get absolutely tired when there's like an additional 30 minutes they need to play because they're used to practicing 90 minutes. Maybe a little bit longer there, but it's just what you practice. It's if you're used to playing 90-minute long matches, it's what you practice the most, right? If you're playing normally like 10-15 minute long games as your average, it's pretty crazy to all of a sudden play a game that is twice, maybe even 3 times as long. Alright, so there we go. Now that Harstem finally got himself another base, and I think he was waiting for that, he started producing carriers. So he finally secured himself another hatch, or another nexus rather. He got himself this base up and running. There's not that many probes though. He does also have the gold again, which I really like. I really do feel like he should position his army a little bit more over on this side though, but that does leave him vulnerable. This is really nicely done by Bly, right? Bly reading him like a book here. He knows very well that if these 2 bases are located, it's a good chance that Protoss is going to take the high ground. It maybe is the case that Harstem knows way better than me what is going on here. Here we go though, once again the Banelings moving forward. I do think that Harstem has been in this scenario several times because he's very deliberately positioning his army here on the right-hand side of his mining bases, rather than putting it all on the high ground, which is what I personally would have done, just in case of these Banelings running by. And here we go, once again. Bly is going to continuously test the waters, right? The Zealots are moving here on the right-hand side, but here we go, once again. The Roly boys finally made their way into the mineral line, and that is 15 probes. The first 24 times or whatever, you know, Harstem defended against them, but eventually a couple of them did slip through the cracks. And that is not what you want at this point, though. Look at that. Harstem, 28 probes versus 37 drones. Bly still split off a big chunk of his force to continuously deal with these Zealot run-bys. Who is actually ahead, though? I think I favor the army composition here of Harstem. If we would have had those couple of High Templar, I definitely would have. That's still 33 Hydras, though, and that's a very menacing amount. I don't think Harstem can really take the fight to the Zerg's side of the map. But there are now carriers, like, finishing up as well. That's 2 carriers for every moment that goes by. That's a lot. Corruptors are going to be great, but you do have to target fire them down properly. There's, of course, these Vipers too, right? And Vipers with good abducts can easily pick off these really expensive Protoss capital ships. So I do think this is a really important moment here as well. The Corruptors, once again, added to the control group there. I think that now that Harstem has the high ground once again, though, I think he wants to start pushing here in just a little bit. Additional spore crawlers that are coming up. The thing is, of course, every mineral you spend is very, very, very expensive. Look at the amount. Oh my god, dude. Look at the amount of Zealots just standing here. There's a lot of Zerglings here as well. I think that Harstem may want to go for like a big push and then try his hand at moving towards the base over here. That's basically one of the last mining ones for Zerg as soon as he can. There's such a nice back and forth though, both players being extremely patient here. They're both waiting to try and see if one of them overextends. Looks like neither of them really have done anything like this so far. I have no clue who's actually ahead here. I don't actually know. Well, there we go. The carriers have been shown. I don't know if Bly knew about them until this point. Banelings, though, so good against these Zealots. Zealots will be picked off, and with that, the Archon too. Hydras are going to be able to continue the harassment for a little while longer, but once again, a lot of creep there does get killed. Harstem, though? The Observer just barely does not have the vision there to kill those, or spot those creep tumors, rather. And it does mean that Bly can continuously try to creep that area forward for a little bit longer. Oh, I like this. So Bly has been denying this base for so very long. He's now decided he wants to just take the hatchery for its own, right? Just start mining those minerals in favor of the Zerg. And, I mean, Harstem is very unlikely to scout for this. Harstem is very unlikely to scout for this at this point. Zerg has had this area of the map for a little while already. I do think that that is actually a really clever move. He's mining out all of the bases that he's got. I think that, I don't know what got cancelled there. Was that a Hydra then, or an Ultra Cavern? Oh, an Ultra Cavern. Very interesting. So Ultralisks are very good at dealing with the Interceptors. If you put the Ultralisk in front, with the Carapace upgrade, and obviously with +3 armor, actually, ooh, that's a big loss. Big mistake there, actually, by Bly. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But he's only sitting at 2-2 for Missile and Carapace. Anyways, with the armor that Ultralisk provide, right? They can take a lot of the shots of the Interceptors. So if you put the Ultralisk in front, the Interceptors of the Protoss will automatically go right on top of it. And that means that the Ultras, I mean, they only deal 1 damage to Ultras, is what I'm trying to say. So Interceptors will be able to sort of be that fly around the Ultralisk head. It's annoying, but it won't really deal a lot of damage. So that's one of the ways to nullify it. Might also be meant as sort of like a switch. As soon as his army finishes, there we go. We do immediately see the chitinous plating upgrade here coming up. Zerglings now, though, finally found a bit of an angle. And I think that's the last of this gateway army that we've seen here. Looks like Protoss is going to try and defend against it. I mean, these gateways are not all too worthwhile, though, anyway, right? It's not that important. He doesn't want to show this base, though. Drones are now moving over towards that newly acquired hatchery. Harstem knows that he is on his last legs. I think that Harstem's plan right now is to build that ultimate Protoss death ball. And apparently the way he's going to play this out is by playing a lot of carriers, go for one maxed out push. And I do like that idea. Harstem, though, not really giving his opponent that wiggle room, right? Just continuously counterattacking, making like a potential base race scenario way easier for him, right? He's eating a lot of resources here, though. That's a lot of, once again, lost resources here for Harstem. As a matter of fact, let's have a look. Oh my god. Over 50,000 resources here lost for both players. That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, this is actually a big deal. That cyber core is really important. There we go. It's definitely not going to go up. The pylon there gets shut down, and with that, obviously, the research as well. Continuous, stupid amounts of changelings, though, making it difficult here for Protoss to really deal with it. Once again, requiring more actions per minute, and I think that Harstem, he's really forced to go into this all-in, right? At this point, Bly knows his opponent is going to move across the map. The only thing he needs to do is defend against that imminent push. There's now Vipers, there are Infestors, and as long as Bly does not manage up or mess up the engagement, I think he's going to be the one that has the upper hand. I would like to actually see him add on additional spores, maybe even, but then again, he doesn't have a lot of eco. Zerglings now making their way into that mineral line now with all of those upgrades, right? Look at the speed at which they destroy that probe count. 19 probes there in just a matter of seconds. Zerglings here as well on the right-hand side, though. They've managed to kill 2 bases here, as well as a whole lot of gateways. Well, that one shield battery is going to be pretty nice to have. Don't know exactly what died here. Something got destroyed. I guess that Harstem may have accidentally attack moved on. Wait, did he? Oh, wait. Where's the mothership? Was that the mothership? Oh, no way. Did he just accidentally kill his own mothership? I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure, like, I just saw some shattering, some bits and pieces there of a massive capital ship. Pretty sure that had to be the mothership there. I don't know if it got killed by the Zerg or what happened, but that certainly was a big army, and the mothership is now being re-chrono boosted out once again. Harstem trying to get that one as soon as he possibly can. Now, he is going to be able to finish that one in about 30 to 45 seconds or so from now. Gold base, once again, denied. That's a lot of interceptors, though. That's a lot of interceptors. Here we go. One parasitic bomb being used. This is just to try and soften up this army for a little bit, but maybe kill some of the interceptors, too. Nicely split off there. Ooh, great abduct. Bly getting himself as much value as he can. He's trying to land as many of those fungals as possible, but also trying to pick up as many of those high-profile Protoss units as he can. Great storm there, though, really softening up a lot of those Corruptors, but also a lot of those Hydralisk. Great back and forth so far. I mean, these Brute Lords, they're trying to deal some damage to the High Templar. Not quite getting the damage in, though, but the Viper abduct is just so very, very powerful. these Vipers are not gonna slow down. Still though, Storm's gonna absolutely change the tide of battle very easily. One of the Archons immediately gets picked off, and here we go. Harstem trying to make a last-ditch effort. He's got a lot of army. A lot of the High Templar are actually still dealing a massive amount of damage. Vipers are out of energy, and the Protoss Death Ball is moving forward. That's still Corruptors though, and a lot of Hydras here. All of the Interceptors have been picked off right now for the most part, right? They are slowly being whittled away at, and while all of these carriers are desperately trying to reproduce them as well, here comes the Mothership finally, but I don't think it is going to be enough. The Zerg army is pushing forward. The Corruptors target firing down as many of those carriers as they can, and slowly but surely, the Zerg army smashes through all of those Protoss forces, and Bly is the one who obtains the victory in a very epic match of Zerg versus Protoss. I'm really curious though, what just happened to the Mothership? Alright, so here we are back. Just a couple of minutes, right? Something happened to the Mothership, but I don't know what. So Zerglings make their way into the main base. Zerglings also, yeah, look at that. Oh, just a tiny little misclick there by Harstem, accidentally destroying his own Mothership. That's the thing though, if you're playing at an average of 345 actions a minute over the entire duration of the game, right? When you're hitting like 8 buttons a second on average for the entirety of the match. I guess the math doesn't quite add up like that, but it does mean that all of a sudden you find yourself at a very difficult position when you kill your own most expensive unit. Now, truthfully though, Harstem could have waited, right? He didn't really need to take the fight here. He could have easily just waited for a little while longer and you know, took the engagement elsewhere. I guess he got a little bit impatient there, and maybe also somewhat frustrated, because obviously killing your own Mothership is an awful feeling. I honestly don't think though it would have really made much of a difference here in the end. Because I mean, the cloaking would be nullified anyway by the majority of those overseers. So I think that all things considered, it wouldn't really have changed the outcome of the game. But still, that was an absolutely phenomenal game. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me directly. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.